I was married to the same man for 43 years. For 4 decades, we shared meals, beds, rooms, and prayers. To everyone who knows us, we are the example. We are the couple they point to at weddings when they say, "Look at them. That is what love looks like." Our children admire us. Our neighbors talk about us with respect. The younger women whisper to each other that they hope to have a marriage like mine. When people look at our framed photos, smiling on holidays, cutting cakes, holding newborns, they see a story that looks complete and pure. But there is another story, one they never saw, one he never saw. I am 68 years old now. My hair has thinned, my hands shake when I pour the tea, and my skin carries the map of my years in its lines. My grandchildren call me Teta and climb into my lap like I am made of nothing but warmth and safety. They lean their heads against my chest, trusting that the heart beating inside belongs to a good woman. If they knew who I really am, they might not sit so close. They might look at me differently, or not at all. I often wonder what they would think if they heard the truth from my own mouth. I grew up in one of the Arab countries. I will not say which one, not the city, not the village, not the neighborhood where the streets are so narrow the walls almost touch overhead. Back there, a woman's reputation is worth more than her life. Her body might belong to her, but her honor belongs to everyone else. It belongs to her father, her brothers, her uncles, her cousins, even the neighbors who watch from their windows and judge what they do not understand. I learned very young that a whisper can kill, that a rumor can bury a girl long before her body ever reaches the ground. I remember stories of a cousin who brought shame, a neighbor's daughter who made a mistake. No one ever used the word murder, but suddenly those girls were gone. Their names disappeared from conversation. Their photos vanished from living room walls. The silence around them said more than words ever could. Those stories trained me in a cruel art, the art of performing innocence. I learned to lower my eyes at the right moments, to speak softly, to obey quickly. I became very good at being the girl no one suspected, the girl who would never give her family a reason to bow their heads in shame. When I married my husband, I tried to be the woman they raised me to be. He was not a monster. He did not hit me. He did not drink. He worked hard, brought money home, and prayed at the proper times. The older women looked at me with envy and told me I was lucky. They told me to be grateful, to be patient, to be dutiful. So I cooked his food, washed his clothes, bore his children, and smiled when people said, "You are such a good wife." Yet inside there was a voice that never fully went silent. At first it was faint, like a distant echo. As the years passed, it grew louder and more demanding. "Is this it?" it asked. "Is this all there is for you?" I wanted to be more than a shadow beside him. I wanted someone to look at me and see a woman, not just a role. I did not want to be known only as Mama or his wife or the good example. I wanted to feel alive, visible, and desired in a way that had nothing to do with how neatly I folded his shirts or how perfectly I seasoned his favorite dish. Eventually, we moved away from my country to a place where the roads were wider and the rules felt softer. People did not watch every step you took, or at least that was how it seemed to me. There were still expectations, of course, but there was also a different kind of air, one in which I felt both more invisible and more free. That is where it truly began. The first time did not look dangerous. It started as a conversation. He was a man from our community, not especially handsome, not particularly remarkable to anyone else. But he did something my husband had never quite learned how to do. He listened. He listened to me. He asked what I thought about politics, about books, about small daily things that had always lived only in my own mind. He wanted to know how I felt about the weather, the music, the movies, the world. My husband loved me in his own way, but his love was made of routine, of full plates, washed clothes, money on the table, a roof overhead. This other man looked at me like I was something alive, not just a piece of furniture in our home. I told myself it was harmless, just words, just messages, just small jokes that made my heart beat a little faster. I noticed that I took longer choosing my clothes on days I might see him. I noticed my hands trembling, not from age, but from anticipation, when I checked my phone. The first time I crossed the line, it did not feel like a planned decision. It felt like falling, like I had been standing at the edge of a cliff for too long, and suddenly the ground was gone. Afterwards, I stared at myself in the mirror. The same face, the same eyes, the same woman looked back at me, but everything felt altered. My reflection carried a secret now. I could have stopped there. I could have thrown myself into prayer, begged God to erase what I had done, cut that man from my life, and never turned in his direction again. I did not. I did what I had been trained to do my entire life. I covered it. I covered my hair, my body, and my sin. I went back home and stirred the pot on the stove. I set the table, kissed my husband on the cheek, and tucked my children into bed. On the outside, I remained the same devoted wife. On the inside, something had cracked and could no longer be sealed back the way it was. People imagine the first sin is the worst, the heaviest, the one that haunts you forever. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes it is just a door, and once that door is open, darkness never forgets the way in. The second time was easier. The third time felt almost normal. Soon, faces began to blur. Men came and went. Some stayed for a season, some for a single, hidden encounter that fit neatly between errands and responsibilities. I did not keep a list. I did not write any names down. If you ask me now, how many, I will not give you a number. I will only tell you this: more than my years of marriage, more than the candles on my last birthday cake, enough that if the truth ever stood in the middle of my old street back home, someone would decide that I no longer deserved to live. Still, at home I played my role. I cooked his favorite dishes and laughed with his sisters. I comforted his mother when she grew weak. I held his hand at funerals and danced with him at weddings. Women pulled me aside to ask, "What is your secret? How do you keep your marriage so strong?" I smiled, lowered my eyes, and gave answers that tasted like poison in my mouth. Patience, respect, trust. Trust. There is a cruel word. He trusted me more than anyone else in the world. He believed I would never betray him. Not even in my thoughts. I used that trust like a veil and hid behind it as if it were a shield. Over time, I became an expert in logistics and in lies. I knew exactly how long I could be out before he would start to worry. I knew which friend's name I could borrow as an excuse, and which errands could be stretched an extra hour. I synchronized my hidden life with his schedule, his meetings, his social visits, his tired evenings when he fell asleep in front of the television and did not notice how long I was gone. Years passed. Decades slipped away like beads through my fingers. My children grew up, married, and had children of their own. Now they come to our house and say, "Mama, I want a marriage like yours. I want a man like Baba." They point at our framed pictures and call us their example. Do you know what it feels like to hear your daughter call your life goals when you know the foundation of that life is cracked all the way through? It feels like drowning in compliments and suffocating under praise. Many times I wanted to grab them by the shoulders and shout, "Do not worship this. Do not envy this. You are admiring a painting on a wall. You have no idea about the mold behind it." But I did not. I smiled, poured tea, and told them to communicate, to compromise, to forgive small mistakes. I gave advice I myself did not follow. Throughout all these years, the fear from my childhood traveled with me. I may live far from my country now, but fear does not need a passport. Every time I heard another story of a girl caught with a boy, a woman suspected of something, a cousin who suddenly left town, and no one would say why, I felt ice spreading through my veins. I knew that if even half of my truth reached the wrong ears, it would not matter that I am old, that I am a mother and a grandmother, that I have cooked and cleaned and cared. To some people, I would be nothing but a stain on the family name. And stains, they believe, must be scrubbed out, even if it means scrubbing out a human being. So I lived between two fears. On one side, there was the fear of being exposed, punished, erased in the name of honor. On the other side, there was the fear of dying with my mouth closed, my husband never knowing who he was truly married to. Years ago, I might have chosen silence until the end, trusting that ignorance would spare him and secrecy would protect me. But then something happened that I could not ignore. One night I woke with a sharp, crushing pain in my chest. It felt like a stone pressing down on my heart. The room spun, my breath came in short gasps, and I thought, this might be it. I shook my husband awake. Panic flooded his eyes as he helped me dress and rushed me to the hospital. Under bright lights, with wires attached to my chest and machine beeping in steady rhythms, I heard voices calling numbers I did not understand. Through the noise and confusion, one thought cut through. If this is the end, he will never know who I really am. Not what I cooked, not how often I washed his clothes, not how many times I stood beside him in public. He would die believing in a woman who never existed. The doctors called it stress and said it was normal for my age. I wondered what could be normal about living a double life for 4 decades. We went home. He made me soup, tucked me into bed, and sat beside me as if guarding the edge between life and death. At one point, he took my hand and whispered, "I don't know what I would do without you." Those words cut deeper than any needle. The cruel truth is that he has never really had me. He has had a version of me, the one I allowed him to see. The loyal wife, the faithful partner, the woman he would defend against anyone. He would stand in front of a bullet for me, while I have spent years slowly shooting holes in his trust. Since that night, the idea of confession has followed me like a shadow I cannot outrun. When I pray, it stands behind me. When I cook, it sits at the table. When I watch my grandchildren play, it whispers, "You are lying to all of them." I argue with myself endlessly. If I tell him, I may destroy him. At his age, what can he do with this kind of pain? If I stay silent, I will die a coward, and he will mourn a woman who never truly existed. Both paths feel like a kind of death. One kills the life we have built together. The other kills the truth I am meant to answer for in the end. But I am 68. There is more past behind me than future ahead. The weight of my secrets feels heavier now than the fear of what might happen if I finally speak. Tonight, he sits in the living room, the television on, the volume low. Light from the screen flickers over his face, tracing the deep lines time has drawn there. His hair is white. His hands tremble when he lifts his teacup. I stand in the hallway watching him breathe. This man I have lied to more than anyone else in my life. This man I have hurt without him ever knowing. He is also the man who held my hand when I gave birth, who worked long hours so our children could study, who drove me to the hospital when my chest burned with the weight of my own choices. My feet feel heavy as I walk toward him. He looks up and smiles. "Are you okay?" he asks. "Do you need your medicine?" I tell him I need to talk. He hears something different in my voice, and the smile fades slightly. "Sit," he says. "Tell me. You know you can tell me anything." Anything. If only he knew what that word means tonight. I do not sit beside him. I sit across from him, where I can see his face clearly, every shift and every fracture. My throat is dry, my heart loud inside my chest. For a moment, I consider running away from my own truth one more time, telling him it is nothing, that I am just tired. We could return to our show, our tea, our quiet lie. But the memory of that hospital ceiling returns, and with it the thought of dying with my story unspoken. I ask myself whether I can truly be at peace if I never give him the choice to know who I am. The answer, clear and painful, is no. I take a breath that feels like swallowing metal. There is something about me you don't know. I begin. He leans forward, concern knitting his brow. After all these years, he asks softly, what could you hide from me? The truth presses at the back of my teeth, demanding to be released after so many years locked away. I look at his hands, old, tired, familiar. These are the hands that have held mine for 43 years. I have not been the wife you think I am, I say. The words hang in the space between us, heavy and strange. I have lived another life behind your back for a long time. The room seems to tighten around us. The television is still on, images moving across the screen, but the sound fades into the background. His eyes search my face as if he could force it to turn into someone else's, someone who would laugh and say, this is all a bad joke. My face does not change. It is me, the woman he shared a bed with for decades, the mother of his children, the grandmother of his grandchildren, and now finally the stranger sitting in front of him. He whispers, what are you saying? I close my eyes for a brief moment, feeling every year of my life settle on my shoulders. In my mind, I see my old country, the narrow streets, the women who disappeared for less than this, the families who erased names from their walls. I see my daughters and sons, my grandchildren, the fragile web of love and illusion we have spun together. I see myself, old and tired, still clutching my lies like a blanket. When I open my eyes, there is only one path left. I have betrayed you, I say slowly. Not once, not twice, and not with just one man. With many. I let the words exist on their own, without excuses or explanations. I do not rush to soften them. I do not defend myself with stories of loneliness, neglect, or desperation, even though all of those things are part of the truth. None of them erase what I have done. He stares at me, as if he could stare long enough to turn me back into the woman he thought I was. But that woman never truly existed. What happens next, I do not know. Maybe he will shout. Maybe he will cry. Maybe he will stand and walk out the door, leaving me alone in the ruins of the life I built. Maybe he will sit in stunned silence and simply break before my eyes. All I know is that for the first time in my life, I have given him the truth. Whatever burns in the fire that follows, my mask, my marriage, my name, my safety, it is the price of the life I chose to live in the dark. Now, at the end of my story, I stand between the woman everyone believed I was and the woman I actually became. Whatever judgment comes from him, from my family, from my God, I finally face it without hiding.